YouTube, it's your boy, the Passport Bro Wingman, coming at you again with another YouTube video. And the title of this video is called, I'm Insulted Passport Bros. You expect so much, but you give so little. And the way this video came about was, I was watching Brazil Yes's channel, and there's a woman on there ranting about the Passport Bros. And I'm going to describe a little bit about what her video was about, and then I'm going to debunk her talking points. But I wanted to do something a little bit different for this video. Here I am currently in Bogota, Colombia. It's one of my hot spots I like to go to. So I'm back here again, visiting my girlfriend. And as you can see, for the scenery, it's very, very beautiful. You see the mountains. You see all the traffic and the people walking below. I'm in an Airbnb, and I'll show that out toward. I'll show a little bit of my Airbnb towards the end of this video, but I wanted to get into the video, so we'll go from there. So anyway, the woman was pretty much saying that if she was a foreign woman and she knew that the Passport Bros made, you know, X amount of dollars back home, but they come to her country and they only give her like $20, $40, that kind of thing. She said, I would feel insulted, because basically she's saying that we think that we're treating them like they're cheap and that kind of thing. She'd be insulted. Then she went on a rant talking about, you know, talking about Passport Bros, you guys say you want feminine women, and women overseas are so much more feminine. So then she was like, why don't you guys go to countries like in the Middle East, you know, parts of Africa? She said, you know, she's pretty much saying that we only talk about certain spots like, you know, Brazil, Dominican Republic, you know, like the Philippines. But she said, what about all these other countries? If women outside America are just so much more feminine, how come you guys don't talk about that? So I'm going to dive into a lot of that as well. She also mentioned that these other countries have things like dowries, and she was saying that's the reason we don't go to these countries, because of the dowry that, you know, you have to pay like their parents for marrying a girl. So I'm going to touch on that as well. So anyway, start off with her main talking point, which is her feeling offended by, you know, American men treating the women in these countries, you know, with I guess a monetary value that the women in states wouldn't take. So we're gonna go with that. Okay, first off, what she failed to realize is that the men in these other countries, I hope she realizes that they don't make that much in general. Most of the men, I believe, in Colombia, they're only making about, at most, between $300 to $500 a month. And in many cases, as I stated in my other videos, the top 20% of Colombians, they're responsible for 55% of all the income in Colombia. There's a huge gap between the have and the have-nots in this country. So that being said, unemployment is pretty high in some cases. And also in many cases, because minimum wage is not really enough to kind of fend for yourself, be on your own. What you're going to find out is a lot of the people here, generally while they're in school, even when they get out of school, they tend to move in with their parents. A lot of the families stay together, and they kind of split up the, you know, like the rent, electricity, get that kind of thing, as a way to make men's eat, and also to raise families and to survive and that kind of thing. So owning some type of property, even if it's condos, is very, very big and important. And usually the way they do that is they all kind of live together and eventually pay it off and own the property and that kind of thing. That's how you kind of survive, you know, in Colombia. So it works similarly in other countries such as Brazil, Dominican Republic, and like the Philippines and so forth. So that being said, the men here and in these countries, they don't tend to have lots and lots of money. So when they're dating women, because keep in mind that there's not that many Americans that have passports. And keep in mind that we're all split up amongst these different countries. So in comparison to all the Passport Bros that are coming to these countries versus the local men, obviously local men far outweigh us. And every year there's several weddings going on, several people dating. The culture doesn't stop just because Passport Bros aren't there. That being said, when these men are dating these women, they're not spending lavish gifts on them. They're not taking them out to fancy restaurants. In some cases, the restaurants that a lot of Passport Bros go to, some of the local men here don't really have the means to attend those restaurants, if anything else, not repeatedly throughout the year. So that being said, when Passport Bros come to these countries and we're treating these women and we're taking them out to nice places, And obviously, based upon our income, maybe it's not that much. But again, keep in mind that a lot of times the women are not going to these restaurants that often. Also, a better way to look at this is this will be like Microsoft coming to Colombia. They set up shop in Colombia, and they know that most people only make $200 to $500 a month. And so Microsoft says, okay, I'll pay you, everyone that works for our company, we'll pay you, let's say $5 to $10 an hour, something like that. Better yet, let's say they say we'll pay you $5 an hour working for us. Now, of course, let's just say there's some Colombian women and men look at that and say, well, you're only paying us $5, but in the States, you have to pay them at a minimum about $10 or whatever the minimum wage is. We're insulted. Why would you think we're so cheap and bring that here? They would never, or put it this way, I'm not going to say there's not any that don't talk like this, because I did see one video one time from this rapper that was in South America. He was upset with Puff Daddy because Puff Daddy had a clothing line, and I believe in Puerto Rico, and he was paying them like way below like what they would pay in the States or something like that. So he was upset about that. Keep in mind, this is a rapper who has lots of money or whatever. So anyway, I say this. Keep this in mind. Let's just say like that you were a worker in Colombia and you say $5. That's nothing. I know in your country you pay the people more than that. You know that why that would be such a dumb idea to say that? First off, once again, opportunities are scarce in these countries. Keep that in mind. Opportunities are scarce. Majority of the economy is informal jobs such as Uber, such as like the little street vendors where income is not guaranteed, which means you don't really make that much to begin with. Even the Uber drivers here, from here to go to the airport, I believe I only paid about it couldn't have been more than what, $10 or something like that. And if anybody has been to Colombia, a lot of times where you get your Airbnb and that kind of thing, it's going to be kind of far from the airport. So what I'm trying to say is it's a long distance, and they're not really making that much. So that being said, there have even been some cases where I know people that per day they're only making like $10 a day. I'm talking about $10 a day versus what, $5 an hour. I mean, it's not even comparable. I mean, you're pretty much spoiling them in comparison to what everybody else makes. So keep in mind that Microsoft doesn't have to pay them anything. I mean, like they don't have to spoil their workers. If they wanted to, they can just say, okay, we're going to match whatever the minimum wage is in Colombia, and they'll pay them that. And there will be people lining up for that job because again, jobs are scarce. So they're not going to feel that entitled. And if you are that entitled, put it this way, you're going to find it very hard to get a job, because with Microsoft coming into a country like this and they know they have their pick of the litter, good luck trying to pull that with them and trying to fight them and saying, no, you're going to pay me $10. They'll say goodbye, even if the government has something to say about it. Okay, we'll go to Nigeria. We'll find like another country. So what I'm saying is Microsoft in this case is providing an opportunity that would not normally be there. So the people there, they're happy to work for these jobs. That tying into this situation about the women, keep in mind that, as I told you before, only 20% of the people in Colombia, they make about 55% of the income, and minimum wage is not enough to survive really in Colombia, and people are not making that much, which means they're barely getting by, which means a lot of times when they're dating people, they're not spending lavish gifts on them. You complain about Passport Bro giving somebody $20, $40. You would be surprised what $20 or $40 can do in these countries. You would be surprised. And again, you only said that to say that Passport Bros are cheap. As we keep telling you, trip to the Philippines, you're talking about $1,200, $1,400. That's not cheap. That doesn't even include your Airbnb or your hotel. Not to mention the food you got to pay for as well. And on top of that, they're treating these women as well. And that's not play like some of these men are not taking care of the women when they're there. You know, some of them have girlfriends. I have girlfriends. I buy her gifts. You know, I bought her a Galaxy phone. I mean, some of these gifts are expensive. It's not like we're just giving these women rags after we're dating them. You know, so it's just a ridiculous claim to even think about. You know, so pretty much to tie this back to her, because she's an American woman. Obviously, she's used to being in a country where, to some degree, in comparison to these other countries, we're a little bit spoiled. So, you used to hearing about people, talk about, oh, we want $20 minimum wage and all that kind of stuff, where the economy can kind of afford it. These economies can't really afford it. A lot of the economy is built off tourism and that kind of thing. So, and again, this is coming from her being a entitled woman, having Section 8 housing, welfare, food stamps, all these programs where she really feel like she doesn't need a man. If we were to cut all those programs, I think her view of these men and what she's saying about pretty much saying that you guys don't really give us anything to be submissive, going back to transactional femininity, that wouldn't cut it if things weren't if the economy goes bad in the States. Her attitude will be completely different. I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna move on to her other point so I don't drag out the video. But other things she addressed as well too. She said, let's talk about you guys don't go to these other countries such as like the Middle East. I don't know. Let's say a random country, Bulgaria. You don't go to Bulgaria. You don't go to El Salvador. You don't see a lot of people talking about going to El Salvador. You don't hear them talking about going to Guatemala or, India or, some other random country like that. Well, here's the thing. There are men currently right now who are going to these countries. On my job, I've met many men who have went to India. I've even seen recently there's a YouTuber called I believe it's Marwa. He recently was in India as well. You do have some passport bros who are now posting videos about going to Africa. There was a guy on the BMT channel. He talks about going to South Africa. O'Shea Duke Jackson talks about going to Uganda. So there are men now going over into these other countries exploring. And here's the thing. It's gonna get even better. Like you are gonna in the future gonna start seeing men go to these other countries as well and posting videos and talking about the women and things there. And the reason for this is most men, because the average salary is only about $40,000, maybe a little less in the States. So a lot of times when men first start their travels, they're not necessarily going out to like the Philippines or buying these expensive tickets. They may go down to somewhere in South America, hit DR. So what happens is, as a lot of these men are becoming more aware of the culture here, as the culture in the States, and they're finding out about passport bros and traveling, some of them are going to start off going to the DR. So what you're starting to see is some of these cities and these countries are quote unquote becoming somewhat Americanized. I have a whole video on that. Put it this way, it's still a lot better than it is in the States. But the thing is, with them bringing so many dollars in, supposedly they're saying that some of the women in these cities are not as they used to be. I'll put it that way. So what a lot of men are starting to do, and which I have suggested, is, okay, what about these surrounding cities? And to add to that, what about these surrounding countries, such as Peru? I'm very, very interested in Peru. I've heard a lot of good things about it. Brazil, yes, had recently went to Peru. I'm curious to go there. You don't see a lot of people posting about Peru. You see everyone going to Brazil, Colombia. And it's not that people don't want to go to these other countries. It's that when you start off traveling, it's kind of nice to have a guide or somebody who's already been there to kind of give you the up and up about what goes on there. And it's kind of like, wow, to some degree, a lot of the passport bros and a lot of the communities and countries there have already built up the infrastructure for tourism and for people to travel there. And it's like a culture there for the most part. So what a lot of men will have to do is we'll have to be on our pioneer type of mentality to go to these other countries that are a little less explored, or at least shown online as being less explored, and go there and get to visit all the hot spots and share the details. It's just that the reason we go to these spots in general is because all the details are there about not only the hotels, but also about the clubs, the best places to maybe quote approach women, where a lot of local women are going to dance. Even the guys who don't really go there for the women, you learn about the different attractions there, the different sites. Everything is kind of set up on various websites throughout the web. And just in general, you have lots of videos. So a lot of guys soak that knowledge up and they want to go there and see these sites and travel. They're excited. They want to see these things, versus the other countries. There's not as much information about it. But again, as I said, as more men start to travel, you're going to see a need for more men to want to explore and go out to different countries, which means you are going to see men talk about other parts of Africa, talk about India, talk about Malaysia, talk about, Vietnam, talk about, parts of Russia, Guatemala. You're going to see lots of men have videos on these as well. It's just like, you got to keep in mind that this passport bro community has been growing and growing. As we get more men, people are going to spread out. We're going to get more information. So that answers that talking point. So it has nothing to do with that. But she just wanted to make a big fuss about it. Pretty much just trying to say that I guess that we only want to go to certain countries that are like, I guess, so excessively poor, that kind of thing. Like pretty much saying that any country outside of the U.S. that's not poor, we're not going there because the women will be so defiant and, give us a hard time, that kind of thing, which could be, further from the truth. I mean, I really want to say America's one of in a lot of countries in the West, are kind of like the hardest dating cultures with some of the most, some of the hardest women to deal with. I'll put it that way. And now I'm going to address her last point. And she brought this up. She said, the dowry. She said the dowry. She said you don't go to these other countries because the men there are going to request a dowry. Now, here's the thing. In some countries, even in Thailand, they do have dowries where if you marry the person's, if you marry the guy's daughter, you have to pay a certain fee. I believe I was watching 90 Day Fiance. I believe his name is David. He married a Thailand woman. Her father said he had to pay this bridal dowry, in which I think he had to pay I think it came to about $16,000, something like that. He either had to pay that or he had to buy her like 2 bulls or something like that. But here's the thing. First off, she assumes that all passport bros are broke. That's number one. Keep in mind that also men spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on weddings in the United States. Some people spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for a wedding. So consider that for a wedding, for a one-time event, and then go in depth over that. So what I'm saying is, if men obviously have the money to put together a wedding like that, they obviously have the money to take care of a dowry if that's what they wanted to do. Now there are some men who might say, well, I don't want to date a woman from there because I'm gonna have to pay that dowry. I'd rather go to, like the Philippines or another country where that's not expected. I'll just go there. And that's their choice. No one's saying they can do that. But the thing is, if a man wants to marry a woman, he has the money, because a lot of times these are retirees who have the additional money. They can pay it if they want to. And on top of that, keep in mind, as I said before, in Thailand and also these other countries, the men there are not rich. So you got to ask yourself, if they're not rich and they got to pay this dowry, how are they paying it? It's obvious. What they do is, here's some money up front. I'll pay a certain amount per month until I pay it off. I believe, that's pretty much how it worked. There was a guy on 90 Day Fiance. It was a guy. He went down to Africa. He married a woman from, I don't believe it was Nigeria, but anyway, it was an African country, and her father was like a pastor or something like that, and he was expected to pay like a dowry fee. And in this case, it was pretty high. I think let's just say $20K or something like that. Keep in mind, the way they supposedly do it is depending on the rank of the woman. If the woman is like high profile, you're going to pay a lot. If the woman is like, maybe she's divorced, or she has a kid, or she has, maybe she's uneducated, her dowry might be a little less. Now, I don't like to put prices on people, as a ADOS person. I'm not really fond of that. But the point is, if that's their culture, okay, I'll pay the dowry or whatever. But as I said before, even then, in that case, when he did that for his wife, he didn't have to pay up front. The guy had just recently been divorced. He was pretty much, I'm not going to say broke, but he didn't have a whole lot up front. So that being said, you're assuming that when they pay dowries, you got to pay it all up front. That's not how it works. So you're talking about things and cultures that you don't even know about. You didn't even do your research. You just saw some on television and assume that's the reason why men are avoiding certain countries. That's just not true. You're just reaching for the most part. So, but that's all I got to say about that video. I just wanted to give it this video different vibe and just show you here I am in Bogota, Colombia. It's very beautiful. And let me just show you real quick a little bit of my Airbnb. As you can see here, you got the bed, couch, comes with a kitchen. I'm in a nice little Let me turn on light in here so you can see it. Nice bathroom. And it's in a very safeguarded community. It's in a very, it has receptionists at the bottom. It has security here. I think I'm only paying about $40 per night. You can have guests, you know, so I'm gonna end on that. But yeah, definitely, if you ever have time, you have the money, definitely should check out Bogota, Colombia. Is beautiful. People are warm and friendly here. Women are very, very, very nice. Very nice spot for to pick, you know, pick up women. Very approachable. This is one of the surrounding cities. Like she said, we never go to those other cities. This is that other city outside of Medellin or Cartagena. This is a city that's kind of overlooked, but it's well worth the visit if you have time. So I'm going to end it on that, Passport Bros. Until next time, please subscribe to my channel, hit the thumbs up, notification bell, and please leave comments and tell me what you think. Until next time, this is your boy, the Passport Bro Wingman, signing off.